There is a moment in every life when you decide to rise, to stand taller than your fear, to speak louder than your doubt, to chase the vision that sets your soul on fire. This is that moment, and here we walk it together with stories that awaken, voices that inspire, and truths that set you free. This is Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where hope has a voice, and that voice is yours. Well, welcome to the show, everybody, and I just gotta tell you, I'm so excited about today's guest because for a number of reasons, but one of which, well, first of all, hi, Brachelle, how you doing?
Hey, Kevin, I'm doing so great, and I'm going to let you finish this beautiful introduction because our guest today is a very special man.
Have you ever heard, Brachelle, of something called landmark education?
I have, actually. That rings a bell somewhere around town.
Well, I went years ago. I went to the Landmark Forum, is what they called that particular one. And I was in amongst 200 people that were sitting in the room. It was the most magical experience that I've ever had, because on day one, the facilitator, who I thought was just a remarkable human being, he talked about, your trauma and the stories that you tell yourself and the things. And so people would stand up and they would tell their story. And one guy got up and he said, I haven't talked to my mom in 10 years. We had a falling out and I just haven't talked to her, and I don't know what to do. And through the course of the next few minutes, the facilitator helped him work through some of his trauma issues and said, your homework tonight is to give your mom a call. She's in Europe. So the next day, he invites the gentleman back to stand up again, and he says, so, did you call your ma? He said, well, I did. And the facilitator said, how did it go? She's getting on a plane this morning to come over here to see me. Hadn't talked in 10 years. So we spent the first day talking about the trauma that we all face and the things that we go through. And then in day 2 and 3, we worked to resolve some of those things. Michael Stone was one of those facilitators back in the day. And I just hold these people in such high esteem because they are so gifted at what they do. And Michael Stone has spent his life not only working through the trauma that he has endured ever since 1945 when he was born, and his mother's passing, and the different things that he's gone through. And then he had an awakening. And the book that we're going to reference today is part of the result of what he has learned in his brief time on this planet. He's only been here 80 years. Congratulations on your birthday, by the way. And but I want I want to welcome Michael Stone to the show. Michael, it is my honor to have you here today.
Thank you, Kevin. It's an honor to be here. Really appreciate your having me on.
And it is remarkable, the life that you've led. When you look at it in retrospect, how do you feel about it? What are the thoughts that cross your mind about all the things you've done and all the things that have happened and where you are today?
Well, I've had an amazing life. I've had the opportunity to work with tens of thousands of people, travel all over the world. But mostly I've been in a constant kind of PhD of life program of learning and going through many different decades. I'm kind of a trauma poster child when you look at my history. Both my parents were at Pearl Harbor. My father was a fighter pilot. My mother was the assistant to the commander of the Pacific Fleet. They were in the middle of the bombing. Both my parents were heavily impacted by that. My mother became very ill, psychologically ill, tried to kill me for the first 2 years of my life before taking her own life. I found her hanging at 2.5. My father was just absent, overwhelmed with his loss. So I was shipped around to a lot of places, to military schools. At 7, my stepmother, one of my many stepmothers, tied my dog up, which was my kind of lifeline to life. And I came home from school and he had tried to follow me, but he was tied up and I found him hanging on the fence, my second hanging. I lost a lot of friends early on through different tragedies. You know, and at the same time, I did do the landmark, that was EST then in 1972. And I had a recognition that I was walking through San Francisco one night, looking at the lights after the first weekend. It used to be 2 weekends. And I went, oh my God, you mean I'm responsible for my own freaking life? That was a huge awakening, you know, also like overwhelming. So, you know, then I led landmark programs for years. I got married, had a beautiful wife. And when my daughter was 4.5, she was raped and murdered in Carmel. And so that was another big loss to work through. I went through addictions and alcohol and all that kind of stuff and just continued on the journey. My daughter's now 47. And, you know, I spent a lot of my life, you know, I was a corporate consultant, organizational consultant for many years. And, you know, kind of a corporate shrink. Was on the Shift Network for many years, teaching shamanism, leading the Shamanic Wisdom Summit. And then about 10 plus years ago, I started studying with a man named Thomas Hubel, and I've been deeply engaged in trauma healing and trauma integration, which I hope we'll have time to talk about. What is trauma and how is it integrated and what does it do to us and how do I know when I'm traumatized? And I can answer that question. We're all traumatized. So that's a, a short overview of my life.
And for those of you that are a little younger and maybe didn't take history in school, I want to let you know that December 7, 1941 was one of the most horrific moments in American history. That's our entry into World War II, and we were attacked unprovoked and unknowing by the Japanese Air Force coming off of their aircraft carriers, and they bombed Pearl Harbor. You can go there today. The Arizona still has got a memorial there, and that was one of the biggest moments in history. And if you don't know that, if you're a little younger and you think, oh, is that date familiar? Look it up. It's one of those moments in time that affected so many people and affected your mom and your dad to a great degree in their life at that time. And then moving forward, all the things that you've dealt with over the years. It's you are the poster child for trauma. Brachelle's also had a little bit of her share of it, and so Brachelle, do you have any opening thoughts?
No, I'm just thinking how amazed I am that there's people like you, Michael. You're still sitting here in front of us today on Positive Talk Radio. You've gone through all these things and you've endured life. And I know I'm young, but I do know what that's like. And I think we get wrapped up in that. But I'm really just amazed at the person that you were able to be through that. And to have courage to not fall into everything that was around you, because so easily you could have thought, well, this life isn't for me. You could have gone that direction. but you're here to tell people that we are here and there is a reason, there's a purpose, and you matter. That is like, you know, I just shared with my aunt this morning. I told her, we need you. And I don't think so many of us at so many ages realize how many people really do. They need us. And there's probably been people that are like, oh my gosh, if I lost Michael, I don't know what I would have done with myself. He was my anchor. And because you endured all those things, you were able to be that person for probably so many others. And you never lost hope. You never lost courage, in a sense, to say, you know, like, this kind of sucks. What the hell's going on here? Because I felt that
I
same way
wouldn't say I
too.
never lost
But
hope. I think there were many.
yeah, but I'd love for you to just explain like what you've learned and what you've endured over these years has taught you what trauma even is. So please do share with us your definition of that, and how we can teach people to recognize, right? Because a lot of us go through so many things and we're like, they're just gonna block that out. That didn't happen and it doesn't exist and it doesn't have to affect me. But the reality is it's still with you physically, whether you think about it or not. So go ahead, the floor is yours, Michael.
Yeah, no, that's true, Rochelle. It is still with us and it's in our body. And trauma is probably the most misdiagnosed and misunderstood source of suffering on the planet.
Yes.
And I'll go so far as to say that every issue that we have right now is born in trauma, whether it's racism, whether it's climate change, whether it's political unrest or war or enslavement, regardless of what it is, because trauma creates separation. That's the first thing that's really important. That's the first impact of trauma. And so it's important to actually understand that, first of all, what we talk about when we talk trauma is not what happened. We think of trauma as the thing that happened to us. It's not the thing that happened to us. It's what happened in us when the thing happened. So there's the trauma event, then there's what happened in me, and then there's the trauma response, how I adapted to the thing that happened to me. So there's really three different areas there. We're all traumatized, and we tend to look at it from an individual perspective. But actually, first of all, we're all traumatized. And if it isn't individual or familial, it's ancestral, it's collective, it's historic, it's geographic. I could go on and on with all the different kinds of trauma. So trauma is a fragmentation of our essence. And what happens is that in an overwhelming situation, our nervous system, which has been growing and evolving for hundreds of thousands of years, has developed to, in an overwhelming situation, shut down a part of our essence. It gets fragmented and dispersed and lands in the body as tension and numbing. It's actually not tension and numbing, it's tensing and numbing, because the trauma response is always costing you energy dollars. It's like your refrigerator is plugged into the wall to keep things cold. Well, tensing and numbing takes a lot of chi dollars to keep it suppressed. And talk therapy really does very little to help with trauma. You have to go to the body and you have to go to the emotions to actually integrate. What do I mean by integration? Integration is when I've actually, instead of turning away from the fear, turning away from the pain, I turn towards that pain and I allow myself to feel it physically and emotionally. When I do that, it no longer needs to be drawing any energy anymore. So I complete, you could say that trauma is unfinished past, or what I like to call aftertime. Those things that we never complete, those cycles, the things that happen to us. For instance, when we are in a developmental phase, if we weren't felt, seen, heard, protected, supported, if we didn't have a caring witness looking in our eyes and saying, you matter, you know, you're loved, then we never got co-regulation from our caregiver. And if you don't have co-regulation, you never learn to self-regulate. So people who carry a lot of trauma have a hard time regulating their emotions, regulating their capacity to be with other people, to be in the world, to be whole and complete in the things that they're doing. So I always say trauma that is unintegrated. Well, first of all, integrated trauma becomes presence. When I can be with my trauma, be with my fear, be with whatever it is, then I'm not trying to push it down anymore. So it creates presence. When I create presence, I create more space, more inner space. More inner space means more capacity for creativity, for manifestation, for insight, for instinct, for intuition. All of those things come out of creating more inner space. Trauma collapses us. We become tight and tense. Healing trauma, we become more spacious. So integrated trauma is just presence. Unintegrated trauma is destiny. Whatever it was that was unfinished keeps rising up to be meant again. So I often tell people when I'm working with couples, you marry your unfinished business, because yeah, you can recognize that.
Damn it.
Oh boy, no kidding. I got that. By the way, we're talking with Michael Stone. We need to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue this fascinating discussion about trauma. And he's got a book out, and Brachelle, the name of the book is.
Yes, go find it. It is on Amazon. Also, visit his website. Michael has a beautiful website called welloflight.com. You go there and you will find Traumatized, a love story. It's got a little boy holding some flowers and just a little pupatito, which we love our pups. Go look that up on Amazon, and we'll be right back to continue, as Kevin said.
Here's another point to ponder by Positive Talk Radio. One man lost everything he thought to find him. His job, his marriage, even his confidence. At rock bottom, he realized the one thing no one could ever take was his will to rise again. Sometimes life has to break us open so we can discover the strength we never knew was inside. Remember, your lowest point is not the end. It can become the very foundation of your greatest comeback. And you are listening to Positive Talk Radio, where stories of hope come alive. And welcome back to Positive Talk. My name is Kevin McDonald. Brachelle is right there, and Michael Stone is with us. He is a phenomenal author and a lifelong facilitator of life. How about that for a title?
I think it's amazing. And I have to ask you, Michael, because there's so many people in our audience that are listening. They're like, wow, I don't know how I would have survived that. But I'm wondering, there's got to be a moment where you realized you weren't alone and other people had experienced the same things you did, and how you mentioned how we have this separation with our trauma. As you've learned about these things and you've experienced them yourself, how can we tie those two together to have trauma bring us as a whole rather than to separate us, but also to realize that we're not alone?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. So, like I said, trauma is an evolutionary unfolding that's been going on for hundreds of thousands of years. And its essence is to protect us. And so, unfortunately, we no longer have ways to integrate in our culture. The first thing that happens when you have a traumatizing experience is it creates a sense of separation. And in that separation, then I no longer can connect. You know, there's two ways of knowing people. One is, you know, Kevin's there in Seattle, you're in Salt Lake, I'm over here in California in the foothills. And it seems like, yeah, we're in different places, but I can see you on the screen. But there's this sense of other. So
Yeah.
we know people as objects, but we fail to recognize that actually how I know you that's more real is Kevin and Rochelle are showing up in my nervous system, and your nervous system is holding me. And my capacity to know myself, to understand and know myself, is the circumference of my capacity to know you. Now I can just go around projecting on you all day long, but that's not named in order to feel you. I have work that I do with people in my circles, feeling myself, feeling you, feeling me, and the space between us. And that is a totally different way of connecting through our nervous system. And instead of telling our story, we speak from a place of emergence. What's moving through me? So much of what you're asking is the shift from life happening to me, which is a traumatized life, to life moving through me, which is a life that has been integrated. And so that's a lot of the process aspect of it. But the biggest thing to recognize is that trauma is an evolutionary igniter. It ignites us and our soul to grow when we turn towards it. When we turn away from the traumatizing or the triggering that happens in a traumatizing event, when we turn away, we just suppress what we've already suppressed. You know, we say, oh, I'm going to get rid of this fear. No, you don't want to get rid of this fear. You already did that. You pushed it down when you were 3 or 5 or 10 years old. And to then say, oh, I want to get rid of it, you're already pushing down a part that you pushed down. You need to turn towards it. So I turn towards the fear. I allow myself to feel the fear. And in doing that, I create more spaciousness and I create more capacity to meet that fear. And when I can meet that fear, it no longer has me reacting. I can respond. I can choose how I respond. So between the stimulus, the traumatizing event that comes up again and again, and the response, I have a choice. And the more that I do that, the less the gap is, and I quit carrying around this, what I call aftertime, these unfinished cycles and things in our past. But it's not only our own past, it's our ancestors' past, and it's the collective, all of which are, from a systems perspective, all part of who we are. You know, we say, oh, our ancestors are dead. No, your ancestors aren't dead. They live in your body. Everything that ever happened in the history all the way back through time is in your body. Ancestors can't heal themselves. But when we do the healing, it goes all the way back. So we reduce the legacy burdens that many of us are carrying. You know, the pain from my father in World War I, or my grandfather in World War I, or my great grandfather, you know, or the immigration from another country and losing my land, and all of these things, you know, they're carried down for many generations until we kind of stop and go, you know, I honor my ancestors, and at the same time, I'm no longer going to carry your burden. And we literally do that in the work that I do with people, is healing ancestral trauma, as well as when I heal something here, I'm healing the collective. By the same token, the collective is always integrating me. Like there's a great deal of fear right now in the world, particularly in the United States right now. And we're being fed that by the media, and it's being exacerbated by AI and social media. Negative energy goes much faster and travels 10 times faster than positive things. So I'm loving that I'm on Positive Talk Radio, because that's, you know, that's my job, and has been for many, many years. So the integration process. So another aspect of this, to answer your question, is we were wounded in relationship. So why I do circles is because we heal in relationship. The fact that we didn't have the co-regulation as a child. So I bring together groups, usually 12 to 18 groups. I teach classes with a lot more, but I don't make them any bigger than that. But then you create a safe container, and my groups are 4 to 6 months long. So you meet the same people every week. It's like a big love
Yeah.
fest. My circles are amazing. Everybody's hugging, and they get to know each other personally. They know all their shit. Excuse that. I guess you can say that on. I didn't used to be able to say that on radio, which I did for 17 years. So yeah. So the healing comes for when I'm recognized, I'm seen. And when you have people and they had these hidden secrets, the shadow. What we're talking about is what Jung called the shadow, the parts of us that we don't want to acknowledge, and we certainly don't want anybody else to see those parts. But when those parts come up, that's where the energy is. That's where the purity is, the healing is, in allowing ourselves to be up and share that. And then you see half the group says, oh yeah, I have that too. I thought I was the only one that felt unlovable, undeserving, like I was stupid, all these different stories, which actually come out of the adaptation. Because if I'm in a family, let's say my parents are fighting all the time, or maybe there's violence and things, and I'm just maybe 3-5 years old, they're going through a divorce, whatever, and I say something's wrong here. Now, when you're 3 or 5 years old, you say something's wrong, you never would make your caregivers wrong, because your life depends on it. You're mommy me, daddy me, there's no separation. So I say something's wrong, they're fighting, and then I go, something's wrong with me, because I can't fix this. So now I have to adapt, and I say, I'm going to be the helper. I'm going to be the good one. I'm going to be the smart one. I'm going to be the pretty one. And that's our adaptation. And that often becomes, I'm going to be the helper, often becomes I'm a doctor, or I'm a nurse, or something like that. It's not a problem that it becomes that, but if it becomes that without choice, then we get burnout. That's why you see many doctors or nurses or hospice people or people like that getting burned out, because they can never do enough. And the second casualty of trauma is a belief that things are scarce, the belief in scarcity. Not enough money, not enough time, not enough people that think like me, not enough, just not enough. I'm not enough. The world's not enough. You recognize that, Brichelle. I can feel it. Yeah. And that's a story we tell ourselves, right? And then suddenly, you start owning and feeling that, and you go, wait a minute, and somebody sees you. See, it's in the relationship with the healing. What's broken in trauma is the fact that I don't have a witness that can heal with me. So right now, the most important thing we should be doing in this country is having lots of circles of people getting together and being authentic and real with each other. Because we're all blaming everybody else, and it's all, oh, Republican, oh, Democrat, oh, independent, oh, money, not money, all of these ways we separate. Because oftentimes, and I think this is important that people don't realize, I'm searching for belonging, right? I search for belonging, but the way that we approach belonging, I then have to disassociate and separate for someone else. So oftentimes the way that we go about belonging is by, I'm not them. I'm not that. I don't do this. So you can see how we create so much separation. That is how we got to the place we are right now. And I think it's not hard to see the world is a bit of a mess right now.
Yes.
Well, and I'm really hopeful that the pendulum is swinging as far as it can to one end and is going to come ripping back the other way for all of us to get along and to be kind to one another. By the way, we're talking with Michael Stone. When we come back, Michael, I want to talk about the hidden sources of trauma. As an example, what if your parents don't fight? What if when you look back in your memory and you say, I can't remember my mother ever holding me or ever offering me love, or saying that she loved me, even though There was no trauma. There was no obvious. It can be an insidious thing that goes on in your head. If suddenly nobody cares for you, nobody loves you, you become unlovable, and you keep telling yourself that story because somebody has told it to you. I'd love your opinion on that when we come back. So we'll be right back in a minute and 10 seconds. Don't go anywhere, anybody.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
Are you looking for your daily dose of inspiration? Stay connected to all your favorite shows, music, and news with the Brushwood Media Network app. From Positive Talk Radio to Greatest Vibes Unplugged and so many more uplifting voices around the world, everything you need is right in one place. It's easy to use, too. Always available and designed to keep you inspired 24 hours a day. Go to brushwoodmedianetwork.com and download the app, and you will always have Brushwood Media available on your smartphone. Download it now and make inspiration and music and conversation part of your everyday. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, and Burchelle is here. Burchelle, are you enjoying this conversation as much as I am?
Kevin, don't even ask me that question. I could talk to Michael for probably a week straight. No sleep, straight questions, straight listening, straight absorbing. There's so many things that are going through my head, and we never really do this early, but Michael, I have to have you promise that you will come back and have another show with us, because there's no way we're getting the rest of this done in 30 minutes. So will you come back, please?
Absolutely. I'd love to.
Okay, good. And Kevin, go ahead with your question, because that's a game changer.
Yeah,
I think I got the question, and I want to give you an example to answer your question, because trauma can be very subtle. So let's say you're a 2-year-old, Kevin, and you're crawling around and you come up and the dog barks and you get scared. So part of how we grow is curiosity and fear. And then we come back to safety. Curiosity, fear, we come back to safety. So you're crawling around, the dog barks, you come back and you say, Daddy, Daddy, the dog is going to eat me. And Daddy says, oh, don't worry, the dog isn't going to eat you. You know, it's just your dog, you know, no, nothing to worry about. So is that a trauma?
In my yes.
Yeah. Why do you think it's a trauma?
Because the dog scared me, and and my dad said it would be okay, but I could never trust him anyway. And so from
or even more or less like the explanation, right? Like there's no explanation for you. It's, oh, hey, Kevin, don't be scared. It's just a dog. But what does that teach? Because what if a dog is aggressive and it is in your face?
Well, we can talk about that differently. But what happened was, if you notice, an emotional question was answered with a cognitive answer. So the emotion was never recognized or felt. Let's say, and this is not sex, it can go either way, but let's say the same thing happens and Kevin comes back, Kevin, the 2-year-old, mommy, I'm scared. And mommy says, oh, sweetheart, come here, sit up on my lap. You know what? Sometimes I get scared too, and it's okay to be scared. You feel the difference between that, the connection, the heart in that. So now I go, oh, and I go climb on the dog, right? Or in the first one, I now have a trauma that says, Daddy says it's okay and there's nothing to be afraid of, but I'm afraid. So something's wrong. I shouldn't be afraid, but I am afraid. And so now I can't talk about it even because I already got the question answered. So now I'm with something's wrong with me. Something's wrong with me being scared. So I push it down whenever it comes up. And then, I end up with gallstones or heart disease or fibromyalgia, all these things that come from unexpressed stress, which is trauma, are all now going to affect my body, and I'll end up having a heart attack at 50. Or the statistics are actually amazing on the. I don't have them all at my fingertips. I'm 80, so I have an excuse. But there's so many different diseases we think have something to do with. Some of them may be inherited, but so many of them, 60 to 90% of all illness is stress related. What is stress? Stress is trauma. And we use this word stress so much. It's like, it's almost a competition, Kevin. I say, I'm so stressed, Kevin. I've got so much on my plate. And Kevin says, oh, you think you're stressed? Look what I got. I got all this media stuff and all these people. And it becomes a competition. But we never look at, well, what does stress actually mean? Words like stress and love, we throw them around like we know what they mean. But if you really look at the etymology and the word itself, stress, the way we use it, doesn't mean anything, nor does love. I love my dog. I love potatoes. I love the president. We can just say all this stuff, but it doesn't mean anything. So when I say that I'm stressed, I'm saying that my current capacity is insufficient to meet the challenges before me. So it's an issue of capacity. When I'm talking about space, I'm talking about capacity. How much can I hold? How much will my cup hold? If I'm traumatized, my cup doesn't hold much. If I can integrate my trauma, I can hold more and more and more of life. I can meet life more fully, be more present in life, be more connected to nature, to the world. And that's how we're going to heal the world. I always say, I'm healing the world one nervous system at a time, but I need more people. So,
And Michael, I want to ask you this because in my world, this is pretty important. The three of us are sitting here. And in addition to a physical exchange, there's an energy exchange between us, isn't there? Because we are all, Brachelle's engaging, you're amazing. And so it becomes an energy in exchange, really, of who we are and how we look at things and look at each other. And energy is a real thing, and some people might quibble with that. Oh, that's woo-woo stuff, but it really is a real thing. Next time you walk into a room and you feel the negative vibe in the room and you can pinpoint it to somebody who is emitting negative energy, you'll know that it's real. You feel it. And doesn't that contribute to stress as well?
It's more than contributing. You have to look at what a human being is. What's a human being really? When you look at a human being is movement. Your movement, meeting me, I'm movement. Brachelle is movement. We're movement. So when you really look at what a human being and take that apart, what I said about space. So one thing is space. We are space. We're mostly emptiness, but we're space. And that capacity is an energetic capacity. But it's really, space is more like stillness, more like spaciousness, more like capacity. Whereas energy is the movement is energy. Space is like the paper that the book of life is written on. If you don't have paper, you don't have a book, right?
Amen.
So space is like the paper for the book of life. Energy, is data. It's information. Information. In other words, it creates a form inside of me in the space that I have to hold that. So my capacity grows as I integrate the unintegrated past that is costing, when I say chi dollars, I'm talking about energy. The new age thing of energy is chi. Well, chi dollars are the plugged in refrigerator that's costing all the money to keep your food cold. So, and to go further than that, as you get more into this, then when you're looking, say, at ancestral, you can't like call up your aunt and say, hey, grandma, I was just wondering, you can't do that, except you can do it by understanding subtle energy in the body. And I can attune myself with the energy of grandmother or great grandmother, or, my great great grandfather. I can attune to that energy of them because it's in me. It's in me. I carry all of that. And so that's how we integrate the ancestral part, is the ability to go back there. I'll tell you a story. So, I grew up with a real wound from finding my mother, who first tried to kill me, putting a pillow over my face if I cry, or, tried to kill me with a knife or different things, and got taken away from her and passed out. So that was my first 2.5 years. And then I found her hanging, the very day that I found her hanging, I had just gotten, it was just after Christmas, I'd gotten a train, and I was told, don't play with it unless it's an adult. So I came down excited to see my train, and my grandmother, who we were staying with, screamed and said, you left the train on, you're going to burn the house down and kill us all. That afternoon, we went to the park, Golden Gate Park, and we came home, and I ran upstairs and I found my mother. I saw her shoes, and she was hanging. And then my grandmother screamed and pulled me away. So that was 2.5 years old, right? If you read the book, you'll see the whole story of how that unfolded through a certain kind of past regression that I was able to pinpoint a lot of it. It took many years to get that. So here, these two things came together. You're going to burn the house down and kill us all. And right after that, my mother hangs herself. So it clearly must be my fault, right? So it wasn't until after my wife was killed that I did the same thing, that I began to deconstruct the story that I had made up. So the point I'm trying to make is that we make these decisions about, it's my fault. And then we carry that. And we even invite things in that will feel similar, because the nervous system wants to heal, just like a cut on your finger. If you have a cut, it'll heal, right? It knows how to heal. If you keep picking at it and saying, oh, I don't like this scab, it's an ugly scab, you'll lose your finger probably. Well, it's the same with the nervous system. The nervous system, in order to heal, needs to feel the things that got pushed down and suppressed back in the past. So this is how we integrate, is by turning towards. We soften, we present, we slow down, and we move towards as much as possible. And if it's too overwhelming and you're getting re-traumatized, then we have to do what's called titration. Then we think of the loving grandmother that isn't here anymore, or we think of our time camping in the woods, or something that resources us. So you go back and forth between the tension of the trauma and the resourcing. So when I work with people, that's what I'm doing. I'm getting close enough so it's safe enough, but just a little unsafe so that you can feel the feelings. And when it's too much, then come back to the positive, joyful kinds of things that I'm feeling. So that's what's called titration. I move back and forth between those things. And that creates integration.
You are amazing. Simply amazing. And I want to introduce you to somebody else who is also simply amazing. And we feel his energy all the way from where we are in the United States to the great country of Kenya. Rochelle, go ahead.
Yes. Hello, Samuel. We've been sending each other messages and videos and pictures all week long. I love this man so much. He says, greetings, Brother Kevin, and Sister Rochelle receives greetings from Kiberia slums in Nairobi, Kenya. Say hello to our guest, Michael. This is our favorite program, and we are watching and listening with my team. And He says, we are more than 25 listening to this program. And if you don't know, it is the middle of the morning, maybe even
Middle of the
just a
night.
few hours. Yeah, just the first few hours in touch with the morning. And it helps us realize Samuel is over here trying to feed and create education system for 350 kids. And no matter where you're at in the world, we go through these things. And it's that separation, right? Because we're in the United States, all three of us. But what Samuel is living with and what he's experiencing with those kids and helping them and finding these resources, he probably went through those things too. And I don't think that's ever gone through my mind is Samuel probably experienced so many things in his life and he decided, no, I'm going to be what I didn't have. And you literally are the living spitting image of that, Michael Stone. I could talk to you for hours and hours on end. It makes me so emotional to hear the knowledge that you have and to realize how so many of us really just lack knowledge. So thank you for being here with us on the show. And thank you, Samuel, for joining in and listening to the show. We love you and support you always. And
Hi, Samuel.
I know we need to take a quick break. Yes. Hi, Samuel. But Kevin, go ahead and take us into the break. And then I'd love to finish up the show talking about everything you're doing, how you're working with people, how you go about it, because every person's a little different, and the everything you're talking about and your approach to helping people have that knowledge. So,
and the concept of the circle. It's a bigger deal than you might think. And Michael's going to talk about it when we come back. Here's another point to ponder by Positive Talk Radio. A woman spent years hating the reflection in her mirror. One day, she whispered, "I am enough." Day by day, her reflection became her friend. Self-love begins with the words you tell yourself. Speak gently, because you are listening. This is brought to you by Positive Talk Radio, where stories of hope come alive. And welcome back to Positive Talk. My name is Kevin McDonald, but I think you knew that. And Rochelle's right there, but you probably knew that too. And Michael Stone is there, and now you know that too. And go ahead, Rochelle.
yes. First of all, go visit Michael's website, which is welloflight.com. Michael, I think I've found a version of who I want to be. I used to say, I don't want to live that long. You are the living example of why I want to live that long. And I love having that inspiration, that hope to take along with me with the teenagers and kids that I'm also having follow me. But go to his website, as I said, welloflight.com. He's got a 4-month program of circles, as we're going to talk about, community. He's got the Hawaii retreat, which I'd love to mention, that's coming up super soon. And then
we're changing the dates
visit his website. Yes, let's go over that so people are aware. And also buy his book, Traumatized, A Love Story by Michael Stone. It is absolutely beautiful, and so much of what we talked about here can encapsulate that by just reading the book. So Michael, when people come to you and you're working with, I'm guessing more adolescents, as you mentioned, or just anybody?
No, all ages. No, I work with actually a lot of the people.
Adolescents or people who are acting like adolescents.
There you go. I mean,
there's that. Yeah. I've seen many CEOs as my career of 35 years in organizational development. I've seen many CEOs turn into 5-year-olds like that when they get triggered. So,
that happens to
we all
be a
have
common
that.
thing.
You know, part of this work is really being able to disconnect our wounded child from our wise adult. So that's a big part of what I teach and to teach people how to do that, because we've blended. So when we get triggered, we think it's what's happening in front of us, but it's almost always a reminder of something from the past that got triggered. Anytime we're upset, it's rarely what we're actually upset about. It's just a unwitting reminder of the past. So, so let's, one of the things, get my book, obviously. I think the most common thing that people say about my book is, I thought this book was about you, and when I got done, I realized it was a book about me. And probably every third person says something like that reads the book. So the book is a combination of my story as a poster child, and then reflections as an adult looking back at my evolution. So I reflect on that through the things I've learned. And then there's a teaching. So every chapter is kind of 3 parts. There's the story, there's the reflections about the story, and then there's the teachings that happen. So the book is a good place to start. If you go to my website, you can also book a 15-minute intro call if you're interested in working with me. I love those calls. So don't hesitate and think, oh, he's too busy. I am busy, but I love connecting with people. I don't have any online courses scheduled. I'll reschedule in January. I will be doing a series with the Shift Network, which I've been a faculty member for a long time. And that will start in February. I do a lot of live circles, but I'm still working on the book because I'm just finishing up the Audible. So it'll be out on Audible, and then there'll be an ebook coming out all in the next few weeks. So I've been in the studio a lot, and I'm trying not to schedule anything really. I also postponed the Hawaii trip. It will happen, but I'm trying to work around all the other things that I'm doing. So that's some of that. But, you know, get on the newsletter list with me. I send out a monthly newsletter. It's, you know, always got some great stories in there. So those are the ways to connect with me. And of course, connecting with me will be more about connecting with yourself, because that's what so I love what
that's
I do.
scary.
And Michael, if I can, I want to take you back into the mists of time, way back when you were in San Francisco and you had the epiphany. Wait a minute. You mean I have a choice in all this? Tell us about that.
Well, I think the experience was one of, when we integrate something, the world becomes bigger and brighter. We become more connected. So walking through the streets of San Francisco, the lights got much brighter. I was more connected to the people walking by. I could feel places where I pulled away, where I connected. So that sense of being part of the world, the more we practice integration, and again, integration is feeling these things that are going through us and feeling them particularly in the witness of other people. So like I said before, and I think it's really important, that we were wounded in relationship. And so the best place to heal is healing in relationship. And I think that's the critical thing about this work. It's not easy. You know, our ancestors, many of them, particularly indigenous ancestors, when somebody was traumatized, they would then join together, and the whole tribe would hold the person that was going through the trauma to heal. And it sometimes lasted for days and weeks, maybe, before that person would then feel again belonging. And belonging is a big part of this work. There's a tension between growth, becoming, and belonging. So if I'm in a relationship and I'm growing too fast, or someone else is growing too fast, then I have a sense of loss of belonging. And that, if we can't be authentic and share about that, that's how, where many relationships that I work for, a person wants to be on a spiritual trip, the other partner doesn't want to, and then the other partner feels not belonging, will create situations to then divide and blame the other person. Sound familiar?
Well, too much. Damn it.
Just
And it goes into what
wait
you
a
were
little
saying.
bit.
Yeah, Michael, you put this vision in my head that I hope everybody listening to this can see. And Samuel just messaged me, thank you, sister. I am astounded, because in my mind, I never thought about the fact that you could change the size of your cup. You said, as you build your capacity, you open or maybe even shut it down. Yeah, we do that. Hello, we're human. Nice to meet you. I'm Rochelle. I do the same thing. But it, for my mind, to sit here and listen to you and think, when your cup is so empty or so full and you don't have that capacity, but then you allow yourself to feel these things. Michael, I know that I'm not the only one that's going to listen to this that is like, allowing that is, I can't put words to it, but I know that you understand. To finally allow yourself to feel and to be is a whole thing in itself. But when you mentioned about growing that capacity so your cup becomes larger and you can put more into it, so you can give more out, like I'm astounded by that, because none of us ever think about the size of our cup. And I know we're going to run out of time, which just makes me want to blow this little thing up because I have so many questions for you. But the whole idea of making your cup larger within yourself, if there's one thing we could share at the end of the show, what was the realization of that? Or maybe what are some tools that people can take from the rest of the show to practice and say, hey, I'm going to allow this because I need my cup to be a little bit bigger, and I am willing to let that happen?
Well, I think I've said a lot of those things, but I'll just give a little recipe. And the first thing is, when you're triggered, to soften, to notice how close you are to the ground, to slow down, and to feel your body and feel the emotions and the sensations in your body. It's not a cognitive thing, it's a physical thing. So trauma is in the body. And so we have to slow down enough. Most of us, through fear, are running so fast and continue to run fast. And I have to tell you, you will never outrun fear. I think we should do another show on trauma and fear.
Yeah,
I think love to. And you pick up. By the way, Michael Stone, if somebody wants to go to your website, if somebody wants to contact you, how do they do it?
Welloflight.com, WELLOFLIGHT.com. And you can go there. And if you want to schedule a call, you just go drop it in the schedule, and you can even talk to me. It may take a while to get to me, but yeah. So sign up for my monthly newsletter. That's just when you go on. When you sign up, you'll get a bunch of free meditations that you can practice. So I'm, the tools that I use a lot are meditation, contemplation, and prayer, and interactive process work that I do with people. So I do a lot of individual work too, but my joy is doing collective work because it works so much faster. Yeah.
And I'm not going to have time because this is a whole show all by itself. The dynamics of the circle and how it all works and how beneficial it can be for every member of that, because you'll find out things about yourself because people actually care and they actually want to hear your story and they want to hear, and then they can offer suggestions on, have you thought about this? What about that? And, or just, the same thing happened to me. Michael Stone, thank you so much for being here. And I really appreciate it. Rochelle, we're going to have him back, right? You're going to make him?
I'm sorry, Michael. I might have to drive and make sure that this happens again to California. But again, as Kevin said, thank you so much for your time. It is nothing but an honor to be spending this with you. And your message is huge to not only me and Kevin himself as well, but to the world. And I can't wait to have you back because we've got so much more to talk about. But until then, take care, keep doing what you're doing, and thank you for being a part of our family.
And thank you for the great work you're doing. I'm very honored, and I love to support you. you're on a good mission. So thank you.
Thank you for being part of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where stories inspire and voices remind us of what truly matters. May today's conversation give you hope, courage, and a reason to keep moving forward. And just remember, till next time, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got.